I like to ride bikes, not clean them. I also prefer a clean bike, not a dirty bike. If that sounds like a familiar problem to you, I've got a solution. The only thing is, this video, it's not about cleaning bikes, it's about chain wax. The two are connected because the dirtiest thing on your bike is the chain. If you can get your chain clean, everything else is easy. When I talk about wax, what I'm talking about is a system where you take the chain off the bike and you submerge it in wax. It's called an immersion wax system, and it's like dry lube taken a step further. It's also not a new thing. If you've been riding bikes for any amount of time, you probably know someone who uses an immersion wax system. That same person probably also has an AeroPress, an ultrasonic cleaner, and they use pure paraffin in a thrift store crock pot. Along with telling you how great immersion wax is, your friend, and Silca, will tell you that you can save up to 8 watts of friction in the drivetrain by switching to wax. Along with that, your chain will be totally clean and last as long as 25,000 kilometers. It sounds amazing, right? Except there's a process. That same friend who loves to tell you how great immersion wax is might also be the reason you don't use it. I know that's my story. See, before you can wax a chain, you need it to be perfectly clean, even if it's brand new from the factory. And that takes multiple dips in toxic chemicals, an overnight wait, and you should have multiple chains so you can rotate through them. I think there's also like a chicken sacrifice and a full moon thing involved. I don't know. I honestly tend to zone out and never make it to the end of my friend going through all these details. It's complicated. Not only is it complicated, but there's an obvious solution. Everyone uses lube of some kind. I decided to stop by my local shop and ask them what they use and why.
Yeah, so if someone comes in here in Portland, 90% of the time I'm recommending Demontech Blue. They also have a yellow option.
What he's talking about there are wet lubes, and those work great. They're very simple, but they're also part of the reason I'm talking about wax.
Yeah, drawback simply is they're just messier, right? You want to go and clean your chain or do anything maintenance-wise on the bike, you're going to get a little bit dirtier. You got to look at that a little bit more. They just keep all that grime on them a lot longer.
All right, no more. Wet lube is a mess, we get it. But dry lube isn't. Why not just use that?
You're gonna be reapplying a whole heck of a lot. You're gonna have a squeaky chain. It's gonna make more noise. No one wants to hear that on the group ride. So, you know, it's too much fuss.
Okay, so dry lube doesn't work either? No, I'm just kidding. That's just fake YouTube drama. What really happened is that Silca changed the game. I told you in the beginning I wouldn't try to sell you on wax being faster. I'm also really not going to lean into longevity and making your chain last longer. I would take that stuff though, and I would especially take that stuff if it comes along with a sparkling clean drivetrain. And that's what the Silca system does. It gives you all of that stuff without the hassle, because that's the thing. That stuff, it's not really worth the hassle, and Silca makes it easy. Okay, now, Silca did build a system that costs more than thrift store crock pots and paraffin wax, but it's not too expensive. It's about $160 to get you started with a kit, but once you've got that, it'll last for a long time. And again, in the written article, there are more details and there is a little bit cheaper way you can go, but if you go for the whole kit, that's what it is. And you just get this fancy crock pot that is accurate to the temperature you set it. And that's important because you need to first set it to 125°C, and then you take your wax, and this is a big block because I've used it a bunch of times, and you just drop it in there, and then you take a strip chip, and again, this comes in 6 pieces, but I've used it a bunch of times, and you drop that in there too. You let it melt, and then you take your chain, you put it in, mix it around a little bit, you let it sit for 10 minutes, and then you turn it down to 75°C, you mix it around again, you let it cool, and once it's cooled, you just take it out and hang it back up. You can turn off the thing at that point, and then you're done. That's it. And when it's time to do it again, all you have to do is either top up with the drip wax, or if you want, you can use hot water to clean it and then go through this again, but you don't need to use another strip chip. And that's it. Dead simple. There's no messing around with it. Sounds amazing, right? But what about the drawbacks? There's 2 things that come up when you talk about wax. There's longevity and there's rain performance. And it's these reasons that have had me hold off for a year before talking about the Silca Wax System. Silca says 200 miles before you add drip wax to top off, but it seems highly conservative to me. I ride 600 to 700 miles a month during the summer, and during that whole time, I never really felt like I had to add more wax. I just did because, I don't know, you're supposed to. This is really why I've been waiting to share info. I wanted to see how wax would hold up in the rain. Now it's winter, so I ran an experiment. This is a wax chain bike behind me, and the other day I took it out in the absolute pouring rain. When I got home, I didn't do anything. I didn't dry it, I didn't clean it, nothing. A week later, I took it out again. Now I don't advise you do the same, but the whole point was to see what would it do? What would it look like? How would it perform? Let's take a look. What'd you expect? It's wax, not magic. This thing needs some lube. It's a mess. But the difference is that there's no rust, and all I'd have to do is pull off the chain, pour some hot water on it, put it back in the wax, and I'd be done. And it would be perfect again. And there's no grease on it at all. That's a much better experience than using wet lube. I've been testing the Silca system in the wet, in the dry. I've been using it for a year, and I can tell you, I am not going back. And if that sounds a little bit like a Silca commercial, it is what it is. There's just no one else that has anything like it. Really what it points out is that someone else should come to market with a competing system. For now though, that's the only option. I want to just remind you that there are some cheaper ways to use the Silca system, and there are some details about using it that I left out of the video, but jump over to the written article and you can find all those details there.